My name is Greg Massi, and this is The Color of Air, a podcast about the musical journey. So we are at episode 14, and the last episode of my Kayo Dot specific month. And I have a very special interview. I was able to sit down with Byron, the vocalist, lyricist from Maudlin, and he's also done the lyrics for a bunch of Kayo Dot releases. We got our schedules together, and we were able to find a good time. As I'm recording this intro, we just did it last night, and I'm going to try to get this thing out later on today on Saturday. But before we get into the interview, I just want to say a big thank you, as always, to everybody who downloads this. Our Toby episode set huge numbers, huge records for us. I don't, some podcasters don't really like to talk about their numbers specifically. And I guess when you get up into really high numbers of subscribers, maybe it does seem like you're kind of bragging. But for us, being such a small podcast, before, the Toby and the Ron episodes both kind of started this this path of, I think it's because we had more exposure with the Kayo Dot fans. And, we were able to get about almost 500 downloads of the Toby episode alone, which is huge numbers for us. And also the Ron episode did really well for us, and my question and answer one did pretty good. So September was a very good month for us, and I'm hoping that that'll continue with this Byron interview, because I think a lot of people who are into Kayo Dot and who are into Maudlin probably have an interest in hearing what Byron has to say, because he wasn't as, there's not as many interviews with him out there, and so I think you're all going to really like it. But let's get to the plugs. So www.colorofair.com is our website. You could find us on Facebook at facebook.com/colorofairpodcast. On Twitter, we're at The Color of Air. And you can email us at colorofairpodcast@gmail.com. We've been getting a lot of cool responses to the mailbox. A lot of positive feedback. Also some questions, which I'm going to address a little bit with Byron. And so thank you, and please continue to write in and send little notes and questions, and I'll do my best to write back and answer them. Also, www.retconrecordings.com is where you go to find any and all things Balisette, my current musical project. And I just wanted to interject for a second about my own stuff. I think I had told you that our most recent EP, Exordium, which you can get at retconrecordings.com for $4. We're donating $2 of every sale of that EP towards Mains and Motions, which is a therapeutic writing charity which my mom started back in the late 90s, and which has kind of grown and grown and grown. And again, people don't like to talk about their numbers, but what I will say is that so far our EP sold 32 copies. I think there might be a couple after that now, but at this time last week, we had sold 32 copies, and I was able to take $64 and donate it. We went to a Mains and Motions charity fundraiser, and all the money you gave went towards the charity. So I gave that $64 to the charity as promised. So one thing to take away from that is, every little bit helps, obviously. $64 may seem like kind of a drop in the bucket to a charity but every little bit helps. And so I'm just going to make a impassioned plea that if you're listening to this podcast, if you're one of the 500 who downloaded the Toby episode, please consider buying the EP, supporting the music, but also supporting a really great charity, because, it all helps. So that's my little plug for today. So now on to the Byron interview. There's not really much to say to introduce it. We just had a good time just talking as we normally do. We touch on a lot of different things. We touch on lyrics. We touch on how he met. We touch on how he got interested in writing poetry. His spiritual pursuits. Just a whole bunch of topics. I will say, if you are a religious person, or very easily offended by anti-organized religion speak, then you may not want to listen to part of this interview, but just fast forward through that part, because Byron is brutally honest about his thoughts on religion, and so if you're easily offended by that, you might want to turn it off. But other than that, just sit back and enjoy what was a really enjoyable interview. And to kick things off, here is an example of Byron's early lyrics, as well as his singing. This is "They Aren't All Beautiful" by Maudlin of the Well.
In my eyes I see no
hit the record button.
Okay, do I have to do anything? Do I have to stand right here? Can I look at you? Like, does it pick shit up? I mean, can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay, oh good.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Oh, well then.
Yeah, this is an uncensored podcast.
All right, well, I'm going to take my pants off. No, I don't want to.
This is already the most uncomfortable podcast I've ever had. I'm kidding. I'm joking. So what's going on?
Not too much. What's going on with you?
Nothing.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, so... all right. I'm going to take the headphones off now. I don't need them. Now I know everything's recording in stereo. I'm like the Toby interview.
What happened?
I didn't realize Collapse I accidentally recorded on like the right side of the speaker.
Oh, did you have to record the same thing on the left and then have just to sync it all up? No. Say everything just like you did.
Yeah. No, I didn't have to do that. Alright, so the reason why I wanted you on the podcast is also because I spent this month promoting the new Kayo Dot album.
Yes.
Coffins on I.O.
Yes.
And you wrote the lyrics for it.
I did.
And I was just like, yeah, Byron writes lyrics for them sometimes. And I just realized you probably wrote a lot more lyrics than I remember. Because you did the lyrics for Choirs of the Eye.
I think all of them.
Did you do Coyote? No, you didn't write for Coyote or...
I didn't do anything on that.
Or Gamma Knife.
Gamma Knife, that was my title. Yeah, I wrote that.
But
yes.
you wrote the lyrics for Coffins on I.O.
Yes.
You wrote the lyrics for Hubardo.
Yes.
And The Story.
Yes.
And then you wrote Choirs of the Eye. And we also used your lyrics for the second album, Dancing in Them.
Yep.
That one that
I don't know about all of them. The album title was not mine, but I don't know if it was all of them. I don't think so. I don't remember.
So I thought there was a stretch there where I thought like you were moving away from. I think it was when you were just kind of like off in your own world doing stuff that you weren't really writing lyrics as much.
I wasn't writing much. Whenever Toby asked me, "Oh, do you want to write some lyrics for an album?" or like I would send him whatever poetry I had, if I had any. But it's like by that point I was just sending him whatever I had written, but I haven't done anything because I kind of just stopped writing for a really long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be with Coffins on I.O. because I really love it.
Me too.
Okay. But all right, so Hubardo was a story, and we'll get into that in a minute. But was there any kind of connecting theme between the songs on Coffins on I.O., or are they all just kind of individual lyrics that you would come up with? And did you write them before you heard the music or after?
A couple of them before, like the first song, Mortality of Doves. I wrote that. I wrote a bunch of poems probably about a year ago, and that was one of them. And Spirit Photography was another one. And then when Toby asked me about, what eventually became Coffins on I.O., he said that he had an idea of what he wanted, like a theme, and he wanted it to be very like post-apocalyptic. He used road blasters as the like model, I guess. And I was like, oh, you mean kind of like They Live, like the John Carpenter movie? And he was like, absolutely. So it was totally inspired by They Live and road blasters, and the whole thing is like a really like depressing, like post-apocalyptic, like drug-fueled insanity kind of thing. Those, what is it? Spirit Photography and the other one, Mortality of Doves, were written before. Everything else was written with that in mind. What he was, what we were going back and forth about.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious too, because like I never really ask you too much about your creative process. I just kind of was like, oh cool, Byron wrote more lyrics. But so you've been doing. When did you start writing poetry? Before you met me, probably, right?
I was probably in high school. Yeah, everybody was in high school. Yeah, I watched Gothic with you. We watched Gothic, and that got me obsessed with romantic poetry. I'd never read any poetry before that. Actually, that's wrong. I heard Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I heard Maiden.
Oh, yeah.
when I was in 7th grade for the first time, and that blew my mind so fucking wide. I started reading Coleridge, and then I watched Gothic when I was in high school, and started writing really, really bad poetry for years. And then in my 30s, I decided to learn how to write for real, I guess.
Well, no, but the lyrics for Bath and Leaving Your Body, like the maudlin stuff, I mean, that still holds up. People really love that shit.
That was okay. I still consider that kind of juvenile because I don't know what happened like between then and I guess Choirs of the Eye. I probably started smoking pot. That's kind of the big thing.
That actually ties into a question somebody asked me.
Before I started smoking pot, I was modeling the Well lyrics, and then after I started smoking, it was Kayo Dot lyrics. That's basically what happened, I think.
But also the Kayo Dot thing came at the time, you were living with me.
Yes.
In Boston. And... Well, that was also when you were kind of exploring more of the spiritual pursuits, too.
Yes.
And, okay, so, first of all, I think it would be funny to ask this. Do you remember what our first meeting was in high school? I was actually just thinking about this the other day.
What meeting, no?
The first time we actually, it wasn't like, you coming up to me and saying, hey, my name's Byron. It was when we were sitting in the cafeteria, and you just took my book from me, because it was covered in the brown paper bag, and he started writing Slayer and Iron Maiden on it. Do you remember that?
No, but that sounds about right.
Yeah. It wasn't even like, you didn't even introduce yourself. You were just like... at first I was scared, but then I was like, okay.
I must have seen that in you. So I was like, okay, let me coax this out.
Yeah.
That's probably what it was.
Well, but I mean, we were always obsessed with when we were hanging out and we were listening to bands and your tape collection.
Yeah.
And we used to just sit in your room and just read lyrics and liner notes and stuff. So what lyrics first kind of got you inspired to start, besides the poetry stuff? What other lyricists kind of got your imagination going?
The Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, more than any album I've ever heard. I swear to God, that was probably this. I got into heavy metal and all that when I was in 6th grade, and the first album I bought was Iron Maiden's first album. The second album I ever bought was Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, and I was like, oh no shit, this comes with the lyrics, because it was still a cassette, it didn't come with, and it kind of just changed my entire life, I guess. And that's what got me. What's one of the things that got me into mysticism and all that, and the occult in the first place, and just the way that they treated the entire thing. I was like, I want to, do this, at least write this kind of stuff. That was, the words, they're not incredible poetry or anything like that, but the imagery and some of the stuff that they talk about or whatever in that album is just amazing. So. That more than probably anything. And then I started getting into heavier shit like Slayer and that sort of thing. South of Heaven especially, really, really good lyrics. And I got into King Diamond at about the same time, them, that too, that's what got me into the whole idea of concept albums and all that sort of thing. So I had a lot of fun with Hubardo because of, King Diamond, because I spent years and years and years listening to him too. But pretty much stuff like that, not amazing poetry. But if you want amazing poetry, Old My Dying Bride. But I didn't get into that until it was high school, latter half of high school.
Yeah.
Really good writing.
Yeah,
but,
Angel in the Dark River was the one that. Well, I mean, I know that came later because I know you and Toby both got into Turn Loose the Swans and all the other.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Turn Loose the Swans.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and I don't think people really understand how hard it was to come by that shit in Central Connecticut.
I know.
1994 and 95.
I know. It's do you kids know what tapes are?
Yeah.
Do you know what's a cassette?
Well, it's the cassettes. It's the...
that didn't come with any notes, nothing.
No, it was there was also the Power Slave incidents, which we talked about at the wedding.
I broke mine and yours.
Yeah, but that's the thing. no one understood. Like, yeah, you can just go and download Power Slave, but back then it was well, we didn't have. We were buying tapes more than CDs, and the tape section at like Record Town and Sam Goody was like shit in terms of like metal. Yeah. So it's like whenever we found, I remember when I found Power Slave at the Manchester Buckland Hills Mall, I was like, holy shit! It's like seeing a white whale. It was like the white whale. Yep. And then I brought it in to show you, and you put it in your Walkman, and it ate it.
Yeah, like 30 seconds at the Aces High, it ate it. And that's right after I broke my copy of it, doing the same goddamn thing. So, yeah.
Well, but also, like, the fun thing, too, like, I don't care if anybody out there who's listening to this like mine, so we're reminiscing about high school, but...
It's important.
But, well, the thing was, like, that was how I got... You're the one who got me into Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
And got me into Megadeth, and got me into... You know, because you're just like... You had this library of cassettes. You had more than the rest of us. So I'd come over and be like, oh... And you're like, oh, here, listen to this shit.
Yeah, check this out. Yeah, I know.
But yeah, like, listening to... And it's funny because when I was downloading shit illegally... off of LimeWire.
LimeWire, like Pirates Bay and all that kind of shit.
Well, Pirates Bay is a little better, but LimeWire,
I had LimeWire.
This is like 2007 or whatever. Like, I was just, like, I would get, like, these really low-quality copies.
Me too, and half the time it would be porn. It wouldn't even be, like, the song. At least the shit that I'm looking for.
Yeah, you get fooled into downloading a porn or something.
Yeah.
But it was funny, like, and people, like, would bitch about, like, oh, MP3s sound like shit. Because, you know, they're compressed to shit. And to me, it reminded me of my first experience with Iron Maiden was borrowing all the albums from you, taking my favorite songs and dubbing them from your tapes onto my tapes. And in the process of playing it in my car a gazillion times, like the quality degraded. So it's like the quality of really shitty MP3s reminds me of those, like, you know, the tapes, the mixtapes that I would make off the shit that I borrowed from you.
So it's no big loss and a lot easier.
Yeah, like, so it never really bothered me. I was like, oh, this reminds me of exactly what it was like, you know, growing up, you know, discovering Iron Maiden for the first time or whatever. And Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Holy shit.
I know.
Yeah, I ordered that from Columbia House, like, with quickness on cassette.
I brought that at Record Town when I was in 6th grade.
Well, and also another story I thought was funny, and I promise we'll get on to serious topics too. But do you remember when you got that Century Media compilation in the mail?
Yeah.
Do you know how you got that?
No, I was just on some mailing list. I didn't.
And let me just frame this for people. It's like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to frame it for people. So everybody knows Century Media Records now. Back in 94, 95, no one knew. We didn't know who the fuck they were, and somehow you got on their mailing list because I remember you got the postcard for Tiamat's album.
I think that was it. They sent me Century Media sent me a postcard, and it was Tiamat Wild Honey, which is like the coolest. That's another, like, that inspired the shit out of me.
Yeah.
That album from beginning to end, it's a gem. But like like the cover artwork, I was just like, holy shit! I want. So that's how I got it. And I was like, oh, so I didn't really care about Century Media. I was just like, oh, Tiamat, I want to hear Wild Honey, and I got it from them. And then they just started inundating me with catalogs and crap since,
but,
you know.
but they gave you the one of the identities, the compilations.
I think that came with Wild Honey.
Oh,
they sent me that with it.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure the order, but that's where we got introduced to The Gathering.
The Gathering. That was the only other song on that compilation I think I liked. Was that, like, I don't know, In Motion number 9 or whatever the hell it was called? Or that's that John Lennon song? I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm talking
John
about.
Lennon song.
Yeah, he has like something.
Well, that's
9.
In Motion number 1 or number 2.
But I like that song.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, yeah. Then based on that, then Toby bought Dandelion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Century Media. But that was all. That was all Tiamat. They sent me a postcard.
All right. So. Okay. So you watched Gothic. And so
with you and Toby.
Yeah,
you guys went downstairs.
Was it?
You guys went downstairs to like play video games or some shit and left me.
I think I went downstairs because I was too scared.
He went with you. I was the only dipshit up there at the end of that.
Well, okay, but so what about that movie got you interested in, and I mean, did it get you interested in reading Shelley and Byron? Then?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like I mean, I've heard of them before that, but like I mean, I really dug the movie. It's Ken Russell, so it's
right.
Fucking strange. So
yeah,
really
like
trippy.
But know it, you should watch it.
Yeah, it's good. I mean,
awesome.
it's strange. Yeah, it's Julian Sands. You can't go wrong.
Yeah. Warlock.
Exactly, but no, it was. Yeah, like I really dug that movie, and then after that, I was like, I really like that, so I rented it again like a couple weeks later. Like that's, I mean, I guess that's what you do when you're a kid. You like watch a movie over and over and over again. Like I still do that. I used to do that with music. You listen to it until the CD breaks or whatever. And the same thing with like movies and shit. I still do that. Like watch them over and over and over and over again until you memorized it. I did that with Gothic, and it got so into my head. And I was like, okay, I want to start reading Shelley because like I started like trying to think like that and that sort of thing. And yeah, like my first feeble attempts at poetry were very like, I want to be Shelley, and I am not Shelley. not by a long shot, not even close. But like that's, you know, Byron I never much cared for. Keats I really liked, and he had nothing to do with Gothic. But I mean, you know, what do you call it? Gothic was kind of the catalyst that got me into the whole idea of poetry, because I was like, I'm going to write prose, and that's what I've ever done. And I wrote really bad short stories as a kid and really like funny stupid things. But yeah, no, Gothic got me into romantic poetry and started exploring all these different poets like John Donne. I don't think he's romantic, but he kind of sucks. But
I think he's on the outskirts of the romantics.
Okay.
No,
but Shelley especially, Shelley and Keats.
Class, that's all. I took a romanticism class in college.
That's cool.
And I think we read John Donne. I think like he was part of it. So I think he's like him and William Blake are kind of like on.
Oh, Blake, yeah, no, don't forget about Blake. Yeah, that's Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah, yeah,
another huge influence.
Yeah,
yeah, Chemical Wedding, huge influence, which you got me into. Because I brought Accident of Birth, and I was like, this is pretty good. But I wasn't going to get Chemical Wedding. And then you told me to get it. And I was with you when I bought it. And I still listen to it. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Yep.
With Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Yep. A lot of my inspiration comes from that. Chemical Wedding and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Well, if I ever get a chance to interview Bruce Dickinson for this podcast, you can
let me come along. So how did you get awesome?
Yeah. Did you see that he did he piloted like a German like Fokker plane over Iron Maiden played at the
Yes, I heard about that.
And then they staged like a simulation
fucking dog
World
fight,
War
right?
One dog fight.
Like, Jesus Christ! Yeah, he depresses me. Bruce Dickinson depresses. He's just so much better than anybody I've ever met.
Well, I'd be scared to meet him. Like I was.
Why, he's tiny, isn't he?
Well, you saw the picture I took with him.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
He's like a little gnome.
Yeah. Just give him a kick.
Yeah, rest my arm on him. But well, no, he just seems like I mentioned to somebody else that I think he's the kind of person who doesn't suffer fools lightly.
Oh.
So I think
gotcha.
Based on how foolish I am, you know what I mean? Like if you don't know me, like I can appear like an idiot, I think.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if he's got a stiff upper lip.
I don't know. Did you ever read I should give you his book. Julie, my wife's uncle gave me they gave me his book, The Adventures of Lord Iffy Boat Race.
I didn't know he wrote a book.
He wrote 2 books.
When?
In the late 80s.
Oh.
One's called The Adventures of Lord Iffy Boat Race, and the other one's called The Missionary Position.
Oh yeah, no, I did hear about that. Yeah, I think you told me about that.
Alright, well, you can read The Adventures of Lord Iffy Boat Race. It's like ridiculous. it's the
Funny?
most ridiculous book.
Funny?
Yeah, it's just it's really like, you know. If you can hear that, Byron's dog Boris just came in.
Sorry.
It's okay. Hi, Boris. Boris is now on the podcast. What do you got to say about that? This isn't a visual podcast. You gotta speak up, boy.
I know, he's a jerk. Just ignore him. Boris, come here. Get out. Go lay down. You're gumming up the works.
No, he's really not.
Okay, worse. Yeah.
Anyway. Alright. So that's where you developed interest in poetry. Well, I remember another funny high school story was that, so we took Italian class.
Yeah, we did.
And we took a class with Miss Ferruccio.
We sure did.
And and she asked us to write stories in Italian all the time, and she always used to come in and be like, Jason, your stories, they make me... And she really did have a really comical Italian accent.
Yeah, she said they were scary.
Yeah.
I don't know any Italian. I still don't know a word of it, but I mean, this whatever vocab.
Like, I think you use sanguine.
But yeah, no, that's whatever I wrote about. Anything that has to do with like death, I guess.
Well, I remember. I don't know if I don't know if they were as much of an influence on you lyrically, but you remember like analyzing the Cannibal Corpse lyrics, like.
Yeah, well, analyzing. There's not much to analyze.
Right.
Read
them
and go like, ew.
Well, yeah, you brought in like Eaten Back to Life, and you're like, you should read this shit.
Because I was with you. I bought not Hammer Smash Face, whatever the Tomb of the Mutilated that was on, and it didn't come with the words, and like the whole fucking album is just for 45 minutes. You can't understand one word on the entire album, and you can't hear one bass note. No, you can't. That's not true. You can't. But like. Then I found it with like the words on it, and it didn't like blow my mind. It's like not exactly good writing or anything like that, but it's really cool to figure out like, oh, that's what they were saying, because you listen to shit for years and you're like, what the fuck are they saying? And then you finally Cannibal Corpse is just, it's disgusting. But they do what they do well, but you need the words to come with it, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense and it's just kind of boring.
Yeah, no, I understand that. All right, so see, I'm getting to ask these questions I never thought to ask when you're going through this shit. But all right, so then what really started your interest in? I mean, obviously it's the music, but in terms of like the occult, but more than that, like, because there's obviously like the metalheads who get into bands like Deicide, King Diamond, Satan,
yeah.
And when you're a kid, I was too scared to listen to bands that talked about that.
Right.
But as you remember, as I left the room when you would listen to Deicide.
I do.
But I think when you're, some kids listen to that stuff for like to be rebellious and stuff like that. But you found a more spiritual aspect or that led you to a more spiritual way of thinking, correct? Not necessarily those lyrics, but talk about that.
When I was a little bit, I used to listen to whatever my parents listened to, so it was a lot of like 70s kind of, classic rock shit, which I still love. I mean, I love all of that, but when I first started like trying to individuate, trying to find out who I was and, identify myself with something or other, when I was a kid, like I grew up with the whole stereotype, like, oh, if you listen to heavy metal is Satan music, it's all satanic, it's all like about the devil, and so I was like, well, that's great. So that's why I started getting into it. I was looking for like, occult themed words and all this, like, oh, people commit suicide to this and this is horrible. So I was like, perfect. So I started looking for that kind of thing, and it's just like like Iron Maiden was like Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I'm telling you, amazing. But yeah, then I started like moving like darker until I got into like when I was in 8th grade. I was like, oh, who's this band Morbid Angel? I heard them on like some college radio station. I heard Chapel of Ghouls. And like for years I was like, I'm never going to listen to songs where the vocalist is like, because that's really stupid and it sounds awful. But then I heard, Chapel of Ghouls, and I listened to it 1,000 times, and I went out and bought the album, and I was like, oh my God, But yeah, no, like that's like the whole like rebellious occult religion, that kind of thing always just did something to me, and I just kind of always went on that. Like if it's dark, I like it. But I mean, like Deicide is just kind of retarded. Not their first album. Their first album I really, really, really dug, because the words were very occult. They were more Luciferian, I guess. But then it was just like, fuck Jesus for albums and albums and albums of just that. It gets really old really fast, you know? So I like the occult, but I like a little bit of imagination too.
Okay, but when was the point where you started, like, kind of then taking that and turning it into kind of a spiritual practice of sorts?
I've always been into that sort of thing, like, you know, one hand washes the other or whatever. Like I was into the occult probably my whole life. It was actually Atari that got me into that when I was probably like 5 or something. I didn't buy it. My parents bought Sword Quest for Atari 2600, and like it's still influences me. But I really think that got me, you know, because it's the whole idea behind that game is that there's 12 rooms that correspond with the 12 signs of the zodiac, and you've got 16 magical objects that you have to manipulate and put in different combinations in the different rooms to trigger these magical clues that refer to a comic book. And it's a stupid fucking game. But I was like 5 when I first started playing it. And it got my juices flowing, I guess, and it got me really starting to think about that sort of thing. And I used to like dress up like the devil when I was like very young. I used to put a bag on my head and put horns on it and shit. But I was just always drawn towards that sort of thing, and that's what eventually, got me into like metal in the first place. Is like I kind of want to surround myself with like this dark kind of thing because it's really cool. Because I grew up Catholic and I went to church all the time, and it did nothing for me but get me angry. So I just kind of follow my impulse, I suppose. So it's not like I was spiritual before I started writing. I just like, as long as you're spiritual about whatever, you might as well write about it. So that's kind of the way that happened, I guess. Okay. I was just looking for different artists or whatever to kind of validate what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this is a good spot to bring up one question. We're not really going to be doing a linear interview where I'm like, so what happened next?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. But, okay, so let's talk about maudlin for a second. Okay, so maudlin, you're a lyricist and also singer.
Yes.
Or death growler.
Right. Whatever, yeah.
And, so where were you coming from with the lyrics? Because, you know, the lyrics from the first couple albums or the first demos, and when people talk about maudlin albums, it always screws me up because there was the 3 demos. There was there was the demo we did, the second demo we did, the third demo Toby did without you, and then the album.
I don't know any of that. I remember Through Languid Veins.
Yeah, and then
I think we just graduated, I think, when we did that.
Yeah.
That's the one I remember.
Yeah. And, well, somebody actually asked me, they asked, I don't know how they got the names of the songs, but they asked if we were ever going to think about re-recording He Who Breathes the Soil.
Oh my God, yeah.
And In the Magnificent Nothing.
Yeah. Holy shit. See, that was all really, really it was like right around that time I was listening to a lot of My Dying Bride, so that was my inspiration there. It was like really,
vocally
really like
too.
Yeah, oh absolutely. That's always been until I discovered esoteric, that was the way. That was like, I want to do vocals like this because it's not, I don't know, it's just like I like really like deep, like ballsy kind of sounding like death vocals, I guess. But after I found esoteric, is now I like Wall of Sound, kind of like horrifying, lots and lots of reverb where you can't really make the words out. I used to be really into, I want to be able to make the words out, and I just kind of want to be like scared.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so what somebody asked me was, what is the answer to the bath leaving your body map puzzle?
Jesus Christ, I don't know. Toby actually sent me an email probably like a few months ago where he was like, oh, you might be interested in this. And it was like some website, some thread kind of thing where it was just like, what do you think about this puzzle? And it went on for miles of just like people saying, well, I think it's this. And if you analyze this, and this Hebrew letter means this and that. and all that kind of thing. I don't remember, but it was inspired by Sword Quest. So in other words, there's little puzzles that you have to kind of solve to like make a poem kind of with the different song lyrics, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. It was
the end poem is.
Yeah, what the end result of it is, but it's like basically like the little sigils that are the interludes refer to different song titles, and the like line of the song is in each of them somehow. It's like concealed. I don't remember how. And there's like a word that you have to pick out of from each song, and it forms like a little tiny poem, which is about like I don't even know, but some sort of like inspirational, like how to leave your body, kind of like magical thing. But I don't remember how to get to it. And I asked Toby at one point, like I responded to him. I was like, "Do you remember this?" And he's like, "I think I do, but it's probably wrong." And like I don't know.
That's what I said. I was like, well, I lived with you at the time, and I remember you kind of explaining it to me.
Yeah, I did.
Except I was just like, I don't know if I could possibly like say it in such a right. I think it's the sigils that like I understand the basic concept of the sigils, but I couldn't tell you what the sigils mean or how they point to a specific word in a specific song.
Well, like the way that a sigil works is like it's just like a little shape, but I think I think like each of the 7 ancient planets has a different like grid of numbers that goes along with it, and that's how you draw your sigils because each number corresponds to a letter. I don't think I used Hebrew. I think I used Greek too for that, just to make things even more fucking complicated. So it's just, not to mention the fact that I was only really like I was really, really into like, you know, Crowley and Golden Dawn and that sort of thing.
Well, that's when you were first starting to pursue the kind of...
Exactly. I first started pursuing it. In other words, I was a complete fucking moron, and I didn't even know how to pronounce like different Sephiroth and that sort of thing at the time. So there's probably all sorts of like errors in there that I was just like, oh, this is cool, but it still works, but I don't think it's what I intended it to be because I was still kind of a neophyte as opposed to, you know, as far as all that sort of thing is concerned. But I really don't remember what the hell it means.
Well, also, I mean, the thing I always enjoyed about the Bath and Leaving Your Body, and I hate to say I enjoyed it because it's going to sound terrible, but was like the kind of raw emotion too. I mean, I think that's the thing. Like you have those kind of higher concepts you're talking about, but some of the songs are really based on not wanting to make you relive bad memories, but they were based on kind of a negative relationship experience.
Yes, absolutely. And like at the time, it fit really, really well. It's exactly what I wanted, but I moved like far, far away from doing that sort of thing because I didn't want to. It's like I was collaborating with Toby, and this was like his thing, kind of. So I didn't want to just make it about me and like my stupid shit, what I was going through. So I use like, you know, Bath and Leaving Your Body map as a kind of a platform for me to vent my own, you know, like rage, you know, bullshit, like personal bullshit. But that's not. I know that's not what Toby thinks about, and it's not really what I think about either, but it was therapeutic for me, so I needed to do it. Like if my wife ever dies, there's going to be some horrible like horrible shit coming out. Well, heaven forbid, you know what I mean? But like no, at the time it was therapeutic for me, but it's not like artistically it's not who I am.
So then would you say that after getting that out of your system, moving on to then doing the Choirs of the Eye album, that you were more positioned to really kind of move on to the next phase of what you were writing?
Yes. Yeah, because like creatively, like I said, that's when I first started like, oh, what's ecstasy? You know?
Yeah.
Mushrooms? You know, like I started playing around with like shit like that, and it started, you know, like expanding my mind, man, and like all that sort of thing. And like that, it really gets you. I finally started getting in touch with kind of myself, as opposed to just being angry at the world. I kind of went, you know, inside of myself and was like, you know, I remember like something Toby always told me was like, I write music for myself. I write stuff that I want to hear, and that always, I always think about that, especially when I'm writing words and shit. It's like, well, you know, like I'm not interested. When I first started writing poetry, it was, you know, it has to be like this number of like feet per line, and it has to have this kind of rhyme scheme, and it has to be very formulaic and this and that. And it wasn't me, but you know, after I started like really, really getting into my own head, I develop my own voice and that sort of thing. And like that sort of thing takes takes time and a lot of aggravation and that sort of thing. But
wouldn't you say that probably part of that experience, like you said, of learning, when you were first going, because again, you're coming at it from someone who got into poetry and the idea of doing it, and I remember you did a lot of research. I mean, you read up on, especially now. If I have a question on a poetic form, I'll ask you because you know a lot of shit on that. But it comes to it's the same thing with like learning guitar scales and stuff. It's like you have to kind of put yourself into these weird boxes at first.
Yes.
In order to get and then once you can operate within those forms, you can then break out of them and mess with them. And do you think that was what happened with your lyrics?
Absolutely. Yeah, once you know the rules, you can break them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a long time to figure that out because I spent a long time trying to write like somebody I wasn't, but I was learning like, oh, words sound good if you use these together, and eventually you start coming up with your own ideas, and if you're like brave enough to kind of branch off and like, well, which was hard for me because I'm not very confident in myself, I guess, but like, you come to a point where it's just like, well, this sounds good to me, so fuck it. I don't really care if Shelley would write this,
Yeah.
And about that point, that's when I actually started writing stuff that I liked after I read it. Like it's like I'm really used to writing something and then like a year later being like, oh, this was embarrassingly bad. But like now I'm like, I can go back and read the Manifold Curiosity and be like, oh, I love this. This is really good. And that's kind of a good sign as far as I'm concerned.
And that's when because I think also with the maudlin stuff, you were also still kind of using those kind of like old timey phrases and things like that, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, I'm not making fun of it. But I think like once you kind of broke out of that, that's when because you kind of stopped doing that eventually, right? Because
you don't. It's not really necessary, Like I bring up like a thee and a thou in the Sword of Satan, for example. Like there's like thee, thou, wilt, shit like that. But like more to prove a point as opposed to trying to imitate something.
Okay. And two more quick Maudlin questions that I think would be interesting is one, what's with the double L's?
That's from The Exorcist 3.
Well, I know that. They know that.
The Gemini Killer from The Exorcist 3, or Legion. The novel is Legion by William Peter Blatty. It's his, sequel to The Exorcist. It's an amazing book, and it's a phenomenal movie. The Gemini Killer always doubled his final L's, no matter what the word, as in wonderful. And it's really good. Read it. Fucking see it. Huge influence on me.
Yeah.
In any kind of Kayo Dot shit, I'll always double my final L because that's what you do.
Okay. And do you remember the Rises He the Numberless?
Yes.
Someone asked me. I forget who asked me. I can't find the email now, but this made me laugh. They said, so you know how we broke it up on the album? It's
two different songs, right?
Yeah. Well, it's two different tracks.
Yeah,
same song.
It's the same song. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know the sound sample in the middle?
Yes.
Someone asked me, "Hey, where did the sound sample of the women come from?"
Okay, well, the women are me and Toby.
That's what made me laugh. They're like, where did you get the sound of the women screaming? And I was just like, wait a minute, that wasn't women.
It was me and Toby, and we were probably 21. 1920s. No, 21. At Hampshire College in the field in the middle of the night. Running around screaming like women. That was all us. Manly men, Fucking balls like this.
That made me laugh so fucking much.
Yeah.
necklace I placed in the cellar on a shelf collecting dust. Autumn winter rose up from the sea air. My garden's a garden filled with unbroken snow. No flower strain its face to the ice giants whisper now. No light colored vision, no newborn spring bed. My cellar water creeping into a bed. Like a piece of a memory or a dream.
fast forward a bit. So, well, here's the thing. Like, so you were talking about how, those maudlin albums were kind of, at that time, came from a very personal thing. I mean, I think there also is a place. I mean, there is a place for, because I think, Toby went through some stuff, and I think that's kind of like for the albums that I can't remember if he did the lyrics for or not, like Coyote and Blue Lamb Sea.
Yeah,
I thought those were Toby albums. Like,
I don't remember him contacting me over it.
Yeah.
Like, I might have a track on there, but I don't think so.
Yeah. So let's just kind of fast forward to Hubardo.
Yeah. Okay. I love Hubardo. I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that.
Okay, so let's talk about so how did Hubardo come about lyrically?
Toby wrote to me. He was in I think France with the Secret Chiefs, and he emailed me and was like, "Dude, I want to, it's like the Kayo Dot 10th anniversary or whatever it was." And he was like, "I want to write a concept album. Do you have any ideas? Do you want to write a whole concept album?" And at that point, I hadn't written. Well, I mean, other than I think Quiet of the Eye, I don't think I'd written like a whole thing of words. So I was like, "Yeah, holy shit, I'm totally I'm on board. I love it." The story. I was thinking of cool story ideas, but I couldn't think of shit. The story idea about the stone and the the meteor and the seed and all that, I came up with that probably back in 2002 or 3, and I tried writing it a couple times. I think I just read The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz or whatever it was. I just read that, and I was really into the whole Rosicrucianism and that kind of thing. So I was I want to write a symbolic story. So I came up with this idea up to the point where he plants the seed. I didn't know what it grew into. Originally, I was thinking I think it'll grow into a woman. But how cliche is that? So, his ideal is a woman. Fuck no, But I wrote it twice up to that point and never did anything with it. So I just kind of threw it. Well, I didn't discard it, but I just kind of shelved it in the back of my mind until Toby wrote to me about this. And I was like, this would be perfect. And yeah, I had the idea up to what's the seed going to grow into, and then just thinking about it, I think it's it just came to me because inspiration does or whatever, and it's obviously it grows into a river.
Yeah.
But that's an old idea that I've been working on kind of on and off for years and years and years, that I finally had an outlet for, and was very, very thankful for, actually, that I finally got a chance to finish something and put it out there. Because like I said, it's been in my head since 2003 or whatever.
Okay. And so when it came out, or working on it, then Toby used as you slap your dog, but
you petting him.
But so then for putting Hubardo out, Toby also asked you, or not asked you, but he wanted to put out your spiritual stuff too, the Sword of Satan.
Yes.
So I think it's important to also, so Hubardo is kind of this big, creative outlet for you that you finally got to finish. But let's talk about the Sword of Satan now, because I think that's that's kind of your big spiritual outlet then. What I mean is from knowing you for many years, yeah, you had been pursuing, like you said, you read the Rosicrucian stuff,
yeah.
And then the Golden Dawn,
yep.
And then you got involved in the Freemasonry.
I did, yes.
And the OTO.
Yep.
Is that the Golden Dawn?
No,
sorry, that's something separate. Sorry.
It's another thing.
See, I don't know.
It's all the same crock of shit, basically.
Right. Well, the point is, but I think what I'm trying to kind of tie together, which is hard because I've been drinking wine for a while. But
that's fine.
But is that you didn't just become this standard satanic metal lyric guy. You actually tried to approach things with thought and some kind of deeper thing.
Yeah.
Deeper meaning behind it. And I think I always thought that you were on this kind of quest.
Yeah.
Throughout, the last 10, 15 years or so. Because when I lived with you is when you started talking about the Golden Dawn.
Yeah.
And reading more Crowley and...
Yeah.
And then... But then, you were doing the other stuff, like I said, the Freemasonry, the OTO.
Yes.
And it seemed like you were dabbling in lots of different types of spiritual excursions to kind of... And it seemed like it was more just about having this general idea and this general feeling, maybe, and then whittling it down to then discovering your own kind of spiritual path. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, that's basically perfect. Yes, pretty much the same with the words. Like religion, like God and all that sort of thing is exactly like any kind of art. You got to find your own voice. It's not what someone tells you it is. You have to find it on your own. But you usually have to go through what other people say in order to find your own thing. Just like I got to read a ton of Shelley before I can find out who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I Sword of Satan had nothing to do with Hubardo. That was like an entirely different thing.
I know. I wasn't saying it was, but it was Toby used the chance of releasing Hubardo to then
Yeah.
sort of publish, give you an outlet.
Yeah.
for
He asked me what I thought about this. Here you go, man. Like, knock yourself out. I don't know if people are gonna like it. It's like but it's like, yeah, that was kind of a culmination of everything that I've done in the last probably like 15 years or something like that. Like I had a like a vision or whatever you want to call it, like some mystical trance when I was in 2004 after I became a Freemason. I was raised in June of 2004, and like the day after that I had like a bizarre vision, which was the Sword of Satan, and I didn't really understand it until 2010 when I started writing it. I mean, I've been like meditating on it and thinking about it and doing all this magic and all this stuff for years and years and years, and it finally started to become a cohesive thing. I was like, I got to write this down. So I did, and I'm proud of myself because it's really hard for me to finish anything, but I finished that, and like I'm really glad that Toby helped me put it out there. It's like often gave me the opportunity to put it out there so that other people can actually
Well, and you had because you had been. Trying, to get published for a while, correct?
Yeah, like more or less. I don't really try that hard to do much. I just kind of like, I'm really lazy, I procrastinate an awful lot.
And it seems like I'm not paying attention. It's not that. I'm just pulling up the questions.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're doing. No, the Sword of Satan. Wait, what were you asking about it?
Well, I was just asking. Well, well, no. I forget. What was I asking about it? Oh, I was asking about getting it published. Like you had tried to get it. Well, I thought you had tried to get it published.
I did. I tried a couple people. There was one like Satanic Press that wouldn't. Nephilim Press, I think. Like, stay the fuck away from Nephilim Press. Let me just say that because the guy's a total poser. He was too afraid to publish the Sword of Satan. Which, like, as soon as I got, it's like, I can't publish this. Like, Islamic fundamentalists are gonna like murder you and murder me. I was like, okay, perfect. I'm on the right track. If this guy doesn't want to touch it, then like I'm doing something right.
Well, yeah. I mean. Point of a lot of art is to be confrontational, and why can't you
very
put that
confrontational
into your spiritual practice as well?
Exactly, and that's kind of what I did. I actually recently, like we were talking about Alan Watts earlier, I heard or read something by him very recently where he was saying like, I'm a philosopher, and like he was paraphrasing badly, but he was like, I'm a philosopher, and what you do when you write this kind of thing is to write 10 times more intensely than what you want. Because if you're just like wishy-washy and like, we can all just get along and this or that, then nobody's going to take you seriously. But if you're just like intent on one point and that you like, to the point that you kind of like overdo it, I guess, people will start to listen to you. And like I felt validated after I heard that, because the Sword of Satan is pretty fucking scathing. Like, it's pretty venomous kind of from start to finish. And
well, you can explain it. You can vent about it. You can talk about it here. I'm not gonna.
That's kind of the idea, though. Like it's supposed to be like extremely like venomous and extremely offensive, and it really is. It was like a subconscious outlet that I hadn't really considered. It just kind of spilled out of me. It was, like I said, it was a vision that I had back in 2004 that didn't really take shape until 2010, and it took me 2 years to write it, from 2010 to 12 or whatever. I finished it on Good Friday of 2012 on purpose,
And it's in the form of a poem, correct? Too.
Kinda. It's like biblical, I suppose. Like the style is very biblical, like in mockery of the Bible and all that, but also. Like, Crowley wrote the Book of the Law, and like his holy books are extremely poetic, but they're written in the same kind of format, with the same numbered verses and that sort of thing. And like, Crowley's been an enormous influence on me, like magically or spiritually or whatever. But the Sword of Satan kind of, like, that's divided into 5 different chapters, and the first 4 are the Princes of Hell, which are from the book of Abramelin and the Mage. And they're not really characters as much as spiritual experiences. That's the way that I interpreted them. So I kind of not went to trance or whatever, but you kind of like work with each one. I didn't have an idea when I wrote any of it of like what like Belial is or what Lucifer is. It was just kind of, I went into the spirit I guess, and started kind of assuming that character, and it kind of came through me that way. So it's like it was an experiment because it wasn't wholly consciously written. It was like written with, you know, like the help of angels, so to speak. And like, you know, each of the different spirits or whatever or experiences has a very different, you know, like a very explicit view to it, a different character, a different flavor, I guess, that I never thought of beforehand, which is why I'm so, like, it's a really important book for me because of that, because I feel I didn't really write it. Like, the ideas were kind of mine, but not really. But I you know, like, after it was done, I kind of had to just distance myself from it because it's so angry and it's so violent. Like, I absolutely agree with every word of it from start to finish. But if I didn't distance myself from it, I was going to end up having a heart attack because, you know, hypertension runs in my blood, you know, runs in my family and that sort of thing. So I started, you know, I started interpreting that book personally, you know, like you know, what do you call it? Macrocosmically, like as far as like the whole world is concerned, I put it out there so everybody can read it, and so you know, to try to like help people think about, you know, like what Western religion is and like how it's actually not right. But like I said, it was driving me crazy and driving my wife crazy because she had to do nothing. She's just been like sitting around listening to me bitch about Christianity and Islam for fucking years. It's gonna start to get under your skin. So I started thinking more about, you know, I interpreted that book as my wholesale rejection of Western religion. So I kind of I used it as a way to kind of cauterize myself, to kind of just like religion's gone. It doesn't affect me anymore. That whole idea, the whole definition of God as, you know, as defined by the West is gone. Like, it's, my guilt is gone. I'm a free man, so to speak. So I'm moving more towards Oriental religion, like Zen Buddhism especially, because it's pretty much in line with what I've been thinking. I spent years thinking about what God is not, and I'm trying to decide what God is. And I think I found it, and I feel very, very happy because of it.
Oh, cool.
But the Sword of Satan is extremely important because you have to make room for it. You know,
So
you have to unlearn before you learn.
It's not so much of a, like, kind of like you starting your own religion as much as it is you processing years of religious ideas and just kind of like being able to, like you said, like just get out your feelings. So what I mean is, like, so the Sword of Satan is not supposed to be like, people are not supposed to be following the Sword of Satan. It's more of a, because it's about the individual, correct?
Well, my original idea was like yes, people should follow this. You should do this, like, because it makes all these references to the Order of the Symbolic Sword, or the OSS, which is like, I don't want to call it my invention. Like, I, you know, made it up. It's my thing, but the way that I interpret it is that it's like devil worship through thousands of years. Like, you know, what people call devil worship throughout history has been the different incarnations of the OSS, and currently it's called the OSS, the Order of the Symbolic Sword. Like, but it's like the whole undercurrent of anti-religious, like Satanism and all that sort of thing. It's not, you know, Satanism, but it's the present incarnation of devil worship in the world, in the Western world, I guess. And like I originally was thinking like, oh, you know, people should follow this. Like I was, you know, I'm still working on it. It's going to be kind of a trilogy. Like, the first book is the Sword of Satan. The second is going to be the comment on it. I'm writing a commentary on every single verse of it. I'm about 3 books into it, but it's, you know, it's slow going. Like I said, I'm really, really good at procrastinating. And then the third book is going to be a copy of all the rituals and the initiations and everything that goes into the system of the OSS. But it's not, you know, like halfway through, I was like, you know what, this isn't really what I want to do. Like, it's, I don't want to lead people. I don't want to be a religion. I want to definitely be an anti-religion because I said, I really feel that modern, like the Western concept of like God and like, you know, the guilt that goes along with that, and the whole idea of God being separate from ourselves and all that is just, I feel, is absolute poison. So, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm favoring my health, I guess, spiritually and otherwise. So I'm kind of like, I'm working on this stuff. I do want to write all these rituals and all these things, but as far as my own personal work goes, like I'm trying to move away from that sort of thing, because like I said, it worked. It like that magic definitely worked. It killed all of that stuff, but I want to kind of move in a more positive direction at this point.
Yeah, so what I'm dumbly trying to say is that is that the sword of Satan is not necessarily you know, a path to spiritual fulfillment. It's more of just sorry, I shouldn't say the path, but it's not so much the be all end all of your spiritual experience. It's just, this is something you had to go through in order to get to so your spiritual experience that gets reflected in your writing and, you know, everything else is this ongoing thing that there's never been, like, you know, I think with religions, people get focused on, okay, well, this is the Bible, this is the be-all, end-all of what, of how you're supposed to live. This is the Quran, this is the Torah, this is, you know, the Bhagavad Gita. This is the, you know, the be-all, end-all of what human experience with God should be. And I think even you had mentioned that, you know, from years of reading Crowley, that it was like, you said that there were people who follow Crowley who treat him as kind of the end point of a spiritual journey, as opposed to a stepping stone. Yes. So for you, the Sword of Satan is just your own personal spiritual experience, but it's also not, you know, it's like people shouldn't read it, or I'm asking, not saying, but so people shouldn't be reading it and think, oh, this is the path to how you're gonna, or this is what spiritual, you know, this is what God is. That it's just more of a personal experience that you translated into some sort of text. Yeah, kind of. That sounds really stupid.
No, not at all. Like, I mean, like that's pretty much. Like, I feel like it's kind of necessary. At least it was for me. So I'm kind of assuming that it would be for other people, because like the whole Western mindset is that there, you know, like when you think of, you know, the word God, you think of a million different things. Like, you automatically think of a bunch of stuff. All of it was influenced by like the way that you were brought up and like what people told you and what, you know what I mean? All of it's wrong. All of it, you know, but it takes a long time to like actually figure out that that's wrong. Like, the first step to enlightenment is unlearning everything that you've learned. Yeah. Pretty much. And that's kind of what the Sword of Satan at least represents for me. And I wrote, you know, I hope that other people kind of come to the same conclusion after they read it. And like, if you think about it and like meditate on it for like, you know, a while, the whole idea is that it kind of like scalds the idea of God out of your mind and gets that whole idea just out of your mind. There is no one God. There's nothing watching over you and all that sort of thing. It's just kind of, you know, well, I guess it's a Thelemite. I would say, do what thou wilt, you know? Yeah. Like, I still agree with that. It's all what you think, not what somebody else tells you, what some stupid book tells you to do.
And in the process, it strengthens your own personal spirituality. Then,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And
I think that's the other thing I'm trying to...
That's not something that I foresaw either, which is why I'm like, you know, like further convinced that it was like an inspired magical book and all that sort of thing, because I'm having all these like effects on it that I hadn't premeditated. It's like stuff is happening to me that I haven't thought of before, and like the way that I interpreted like the Sword of Satan, like I'm, you know, I wasn't... Like, there's certain verses that didn't make any sense to me, but like a year later, I'm like, oh, no shit, that's what it means. So it's like, it's weird because it speaks to me. Yeah. But it's, yeah, once you get rid of the whole idea that, like, you know, there is one God and like we can all get along and coexist, like all that is poison. Like, once you get it out of your head, you can kind of start making room for what God actually is, which is basically you. Right.
Well, you know? Another thing I thought that I've personally been meditating on, actually I shouldn't say that. I was inspired by you. I've been meditating on it. No, but I've been thinking about it is, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know who introduced this idea to me. I tried to look it up to see where I discovered it, and and I can't really tie it to any one book. So because I'm not in any way, shape, or form a good religious
that's fine.
reader or anything, but what you're saying kind of reminds me that one thing that I found fascinating was someone introduced me to the idea that enlightenment is not what people think. And I think when you're younger, at college age, and you're hearing about these different religions, and you're trying to establish your own identity, and people talk about enlightenment, and it's usually like, this kind of hippy-dippy idea of like, oh, well, everything's going to be peaceful, everything's going to be wonderful, and someone was saying that no, enlightenment's not that. Enlightenment is when you actually see the world for what it really is.
Yes.
And when you see the world for what it really is, it means you can't just say, oh, it doesn't actually bring you peace. It actually, it brings you peace in a sense because you know that what you're seeing is real, but what you're seeing is, it's like seeing seeing all the cracks, seeing all the ugliness, and seeing, and it's not about, oh, everything's a beautiful, shiny, flowery field.
No, because it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really drawn to that idea because I know for myself, that's what I feel. When I see the world, it's like I don't dream, like I can't dream of a world of like perfect peace where everybody is in line.
No, you can't have you can't have peace because when you think of peace, you have to think of war.
Yeah,
that's kind of the opposite of it. That's
there's
no such thing as peace. Yeah, exactly. That's the way the world works. Yeah.
So that's me being a Boris just played the wine once. It's such a fitting end for it. Well, that's another idea I liked about Alan Watts. I don't know if you actually heard this idea, like his idea about nonsense, and how, like, when you think about the world, like, not that you think of the world, like, but like, he talks about like how people process the world in terms of like nonsense, and he like references like like the old rhymes like the hey nani nani and and that's the thing, like we were just having this like beautiful conversation about the nature of religion, and Boris smacked my wine glass with his.
Yeah, it's very zen. Be in the in the moment, in the now. It's all about now. There's no future. There's no past, and that sort of thing.
And he smiled.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, like, when I was a kid, I used to think, oh, enlightenment. You're in meditation, and suddenly, like, a light goes off in your head, and you're, like, changed forever. And it's, like, absolutely nothing like that. Like, I'm not trying to sound like I'm a fucking, like I'm Buddha. Well, I mean, I guess I kind of am, but like, not more than anybody else is what I'm saying. But, like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But, like, the whole idea that...
You're supposed to worship the Buddha.
No.
That's kind of the whole idea. That was one of the other things. Like, I hate when people talk about Buddha as if he's a god, because that's so not what. No, at least from what limited knowledge I have of Buddhism,
No, the Buddha is you.
Yeah.
Like it's all the Buddha nature and all that sort of thing. It's not something you aspire to. It's just kind of you. It's your natural state. The more you think about it, the less of it you are. Which is the whole idea, which is really fucking crazy. Like, enlightenment has nothing to do with like a light going on in your head or whatever. So, I mean, I guess that's a part of it, but it's basically unlearning what you learned and making room for what is. It's like, whatever. If somebody tells you God is this, God is not that.
Yeah.
If religion is this, religion is not that. It's it kind of just is what it is, and like be here. And that's about it. There's if you want to find God, it's just like look around you, just sit still for a minute and don't think about dumb shit, and there you go, done. It's really easy.
Yeah.
But people are so used to being very, very complicated about things and thinking that they need to earn stuff and like meditate for 40 years, and that's completely unnecessary. All you have to kind of do is just let everything go and say, okay, here it is. This is it. This is my life. I'm God, just like everything else, and that's basically it. There's no other truth. Kinda. It's pretty cool.
Cool. All right, so do you mind if we go into some of these questions that
No,
people
no.
sent me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I felt that was like a pretty good exclamation point on the whole religion, the spirit. Because like I said, I find your spiritual growth very interesting. It's been very inspiring to me to watch.
Cool.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
glad. Yeah.
Because I know I've been. Well, I'm always in a weird spiritual place. It's just.
It's a weird thing. It's a fucking weird thing. It doesn't have to be, but it's a weird thing.
Yeah. All right. So, because some of these questions were kind of interesting.
Okay.
This one I didn't know. I know this was something I knew I could speak to more on Toby's end of things.
Yeah.
But someone asked, what role did lucid dreaming and/or astral projection play in the creation of Maudlin's music and/or lyrics?
Yeah, like that was big in Bath and Leaving Your Body Map and all that sort of thing. Especially what the hell? I don't even remember the name of the damn song.
Birth Means of Astral Projection.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never done any lucid dreaming, or if I have, it's been like not willed, I guess. As far as astral projection and that sort of thing, like I've been playing around with that for probably like 15, 16 years at this point. And yeah, it's the idea at least played a pretty big part in maudlin. But after you start actually like using it, it becomes less important to emphasize that as opposed to the vision that you have when you do it. Like the process of astral projection was really inspiring to me, like with maudlin. But after that, like after I started getting the hang of that sort of thing, what you come back with, like that's where the actual inspiration comes from, and that's like the actual it's just like kind of like you can write a poem about how fun it is to write, or you can just write a poem.
Yeah.
it's kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay. And would you also say that for those early maudlin albums, or the only maudlin albums, that the ocean played a big part?
It still does, man. The ocean is big influence on me and Toby. Like I'm sure, we're both like obsessed with that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, we did those photo shoots.
I remember that, and the Cthulhu and all that kind of shit. Like, yeah, huge influence. It still is. I mean, I was like, how the hell can you not be inspired by the ocean?
Well, what about the ocean really gets your creative juices kind of or your imagination going?
It's the most terrifying thing on the planet. Probably. It's like, nobody's been to the... I mean, I guess James Cameron or some dipshit like that have been on the bottom of it, but no one knows what's on the bottom of it. It's like so many... It represents, like the ocean represents, like the cosmic ocean, like its whole universe represents, like Leviathan and like everything and that sort of thing, but like the actual physical ocean is just... there's fucking sharks and squid in there. It's pretty scary shit.
Well, yeah, and I was saying to someone else, like, you think of the idea of, like, a really horrible storm, right? Like a tsunami or something like that.
Yeah.
Where, like, these huge waves come further inland than they've ever come. They kill people. They wipe out things. And then it just draws back and becomes... part of the time, just like a still,
nice and smooth, and it's really fucking scary. It's really unpredictable,
right? Because it doesn't have
it's like raw nature. Like
here's
you can't control it.
I'm totally paraphrasing this, and I'm going to quote it wrong, but I don't know if you remember. But we went to it was one of the times we were hanging out in Boston, and we went to Faneuil Hall.
Yep.
And we were, and like I bought that book on Zen poetry or Zen haikus.
Okay, I don't remember that.
I had it at the house, and there's this really interesting Zen haiku, and I forget the name of the guy who wrote it, and
That's fine.
Basically, the idea was that people are foolish for looking for meaning in lightning.
Yeah.
And that was pretty amazing for me because it's like people want to anthropomorphize the acts of nature as the acts of God.
Yes.
Or as the acts of this, and then you think about it, and the ocean is not. There's no consciousness there. There's no like I want to fuck with these people.
No, yeah. There's
it's
no. It's nature. Yeah. Don't try to interpret it. Just kind of be in awe of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just experience it.
Cool. And all right, this one's pretty good too. What is your personal favorite Maudlin of the Well album based on the music alone? Is your wife home?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can pause then.
Yeah, do you want to pause it for a couple minutes? I gotta pee anyway.
Yeah, take two will be miserable and sad. All right, we're back.
Okay.
I hit record again on you.
Okay.
So I was asking you questions.
Yep.
All right, where did I leave off? Oh yeah, what's your personal favorite Maudlin of the Well album based on the music alone?
Oh yeah. Probably. Oh shit! I don't.
I said Bath Leaving Your Body Map because
that's what I was thinking too. But is that one or two albums? I was trying to tell which one, like Bath
they came out
or.
at the same time, so.
Yeah. All right. That's what I say then. Isn't it just the two?
It was My Fruit Psychobells.
Yeah, and then those. Well, that pair.
Right, and then part of the second.
I don't know part of the second.
Did you read the lyrics for it?
I probably did. I know I have a copy of it, but I don't remember it at all. All.
Okay.
I want to say. So I'm going to say Bath. Leaving Your Body Map.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, this one, maybe you'll understand this. I actually had to look this word up.
Uh-oh. What?
What ethnogens, if any, helped produce Maudlin of the Well albums?
Mushrooms.
Okay. Well, did you actually do mushrooms?
When?
When we were doing, like, the Maudlin of the Well albums? I don't remember you... That's the other thing. I don't remember you doing many drugs. I mean, we...
No. Like, that's... I'm trying to think when the hell... I took ecstasy for the first time with Toby. It was like within the year. It was shit. I think it was right after September 11th and all that, and that was right before the Bath came out and all that, right?
No, they were out by that point.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they came out in 2001.
Holy shit! I was probably stone sober then when I wrote all the words to that. I don't think I've ever even drank alcohol at that point.
No, you must have had something to drink.
No. I the first thing I'd never done anything in my life, and then I took ecstasy. That was the first thing I've ever did. And then like a week later, I was like, woo! And I was like, what's this, champagne? And I started fucking around with booze and all that, but I didn't touch a damn thing.
Andre, cold duck.
Yep. And a four pack of that Jack Daniel's watermelon spike. I didn't drink at all at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was stone sober when we were all that thing.
Yeah, those were fun times when we were living together, and so we used to live, for the people who don't know, but we used to live near the Forest Hills Tea Station in Jamaica Plain.
Yeah, we did.
And the walk home, we had like that 15-minute walk back to our apartment, which sucked.
Yeah.
But there's that the alcohol store on the way home, and so we would always
right across the street.
Yeah, right across
there was
the
a
street.
couple of them. Yeah.
And so whenever because we didn't have a shit ton of money either, so it's like
no, kind of like now. That hasn't changed.
Yeah. You come home with the cheapest champagne for $4.
It's just fucking
we're living the high life.
That's fine. It got the job done.
Oh, it did. Yeah. No.
Cold Duck, Andre. Yeah, Cold Duck.
Yeah. Yeah. They're a sponsor of the podcast, by the way.
Really? No.
I wish they were.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this question I saved for last because I'm sure there's a lot of things we can talk about here.
No.
Someone asked, what was your favorite moment or moments during the maudlin Dwell years? Not recording Bath or Leaving Your Body Map, but rather something you did with, well, they sent it to me, so they said something you did with Byron or Toby or one of the other members, like a funny conversation, a memorable event, or some stupid stunt that you still remember.
Oh, shit. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, with the mushrooms and all that, it's really hard to put it in. I don't know what time frame it was. 2000. I don't remember what the hell I was doing. We didn't move to Jamaica Plain until it was 2000.
2000, yeah.
But it was August, right?
September.
So it was September. Really?
Well, because remember we were gonna go to that one place on Mozart Street.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't get that apartment, so we had to stay with Toby for
yes,
3 weeks while we waited for the place on Patton Street to open up.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, but still, yeah, September 2000.
But when the hell did we record that? It was after that. Are you sure it wasn't in 2002?
Yeah, Bath and Leaving Your Body Map came out in 2001.
Oh.
Because we did the Milwaukee Metal Fest that year.
Christ, I don't...
And then we did that show in New Jersey.
Yeah, I do remember
you and I drove... That was fun. You and me driving down in the truck with the gear.
I don't remember that.
Thanks.
No,
I had this really touching, awesome time with Byron.
It wasn't touching or awesome. It was driving through New Jersey is never touching or awesome. I'm trying to remember.
He doesn't remember.
Well, I mean, we just moved into Patton Street on JP, and that was fun and awesome and shit.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anything remarkable that happened.
Well, all right. Well, maybe this will spark some of your memories. I don't know, but what about when we drove to Milwaukee? I was talking about this a little bit. When we drove to Milwaukee and we were listening to Abigail, and Deadly Omens came on, and then we were on the highway and then it was stopped because that dude committed suicide.
That was as soon as we left Connecticut. We were still in Connecticut.
Yeah, we were still in Connecticut.
We were still in fucking Connecticut. I do remember that. Yeah. Somebody committed suicide. They jumped off the overpass and they backed traffic up for fucking miles because the Undertaker, they had to claim a certain percentage of the body before they can pronounce it dead. I think we learned that the hard way.
Yeah, before they can say that they have a body.
Yeah.
Scene,
I do remember. Oh my god.
Listening, Deadly.
I didn't remember that's what we were listening to. But yeah, a really fucking good album. That was a good time. That was a fucking shitty couple hours, but it was smooth sailing from then on. Yeah.
All right. Well, what about you talk about the I mentioned this one too at the New Jersey Metal Fest with the guy who set fire to the thing, and then you. Okay, let me set the scene for this. So at the time when we first moved out, so you were a fireman, a volunteer fireman.
Yep.
In South Meriden.
Yeah.
And you had all your gear with you.
No, I didn't have any gear. I had my fucking shirt.
Yes, I meant.
I had a shirt that says South Meriden.
Yeah, well, no, you would perform with your South Meriden fire shirt on, and you had the sweatshirt.
Yeah. I had a job shirt to go over it with I remember that.
And then so the fire started, and the fire people came, and they were there, and you snuck off to go.
I do, yeah. It was come on, guys. Yeah, I'm.
You take the lead.
Seems to be the problem here. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember there was an actual fire though.
Yeah, the guys set fire to a table on stage.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that, and they had to stop the whole thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a real fire.
No.
It was a concrete building. Nothing was catching fire.
No, I know.
People.
It was right. It wasn't that Great White Show or whatever. No, it was real. It was. Yeah, I do remember that. And I went backstage. That was a fucking pretty boring couple of years though. Nothing happened. That was funny or cool. Really? I mean. Maybe some stuff. I moved to Boston. Well, moved to Jamaica Plain, and that was really fun.
All right. Well, what about the what do you remember about the genesis of Maudlin? About that? Do you remember that day? When we took photos and we went out to dinner at the Gelston house.
Yeah, I was gonna say we were still in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Wait, we didn't even move yet. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that mine in Middletown that we used to go to all the time. I think Toby drew a picture of it. That fucking terrifying thing. And there was that huge barn that segmented shadow came out of, and he drew a picture of that too. It's still on one of my guitars. I think.
I never heard that story, but the segmented shadow.
Well, it was a segment. Well, we made it up, but it was it was one of those "wouldn't it be awesome if" stories. Like, yeah, there's this like huge kind of barn or enclosure, and we were hanging out at the mine in Middletown, thinking about a huge segmented shadow that came. It's just like kind of like bent out and and started walking around, and he drew a picture of it and made it into some Maudlin sticker that I have on a guitar that I have. So that was fun. And I remember the ghost house. He drew a picture of that fucking shit too.
Talk about the ghost house.
Actually, the ghost house is in the Birth Pains of Astral Projection. I wrote about like Amelia.
Yeah.
That's the name of the spirit that we quote unquote channeled or whatever. That was on the we had the Ouija board with us. It was me and Toby and Chris. I think. Did you ever come to any of those seances at the ghost house?
Scared.
Yeah, no, we broke into this old house in Sullington, and it was supposedly haunted, but it was just kind of an old dark house that was terrifying at 2:00 in the morning. And we fucked around with the Ouija board and came into contact with something that called itself Amelia, and it was really, really scary for a long time. And we used to go out there every night until about 3 a.m, every fucking night, and like communicate with this thing. And then we just kind of stopped doing it. I flipped out. That's what Toby will remember, and Chris. They'll fucking Byron flipped out and said, "There's nothing here," and then everything stopped happening. So I guess it was kind of my fault that fell through.
Well, okay, but what do you think? So do you think you actually were communicating with a spirit?
I don't think that a spirit is anything that was... I don't think that it was anything that was attached to the house, like the actual dwelling. I think it was... Like, the location is not important. It's just... It was a strange place in the middle of the night, so it kind of gets your imagination going. So it's really easy to kind of get in the mood to talk to something, to become passive enough to... Anything that's kind of like creeping by in the astral, you can kind of contact, I suppose. And that's kind of what it was, if it was anything. I don't think that house itself was haunted, but I definitely think that we were, conversing with something, like, via Ouija board. I just don't think it was attached to that, specific house.
Okay, but then how do you explain the fact that you would go there night after night to the same location and converse with the same spirit?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was like the location itself. Like, we defined it. It was just kind of it was what it was. It was just like an old, dark, creepy house that was for sale. But by us going there, we there's the whole ritual of preparation. And I'm going to this scary house, and if you think it's haunted, then that kind of makes it haunted. And then when you're in there for nights and nights and nights, it starts to we created it. Is what I'm saying. Kind of like a la Gothic. we created a spirit. It's kind of what I think. Whether or not it was, objective is something, up for debate. But I think that we kind of created a ghost that doesn't make it any less real. But it was really fucking scary, and there was really shit happening. And I think it was kind of just a psychic projection of us.
So how does that tie into the lyrics of Birth Pains of Astral Projection?
The whole thing is about exploration, and like the ghost house represents kind of like leaving your body, and what's out there, and can I get out of myself, and what's a ghost, and all that sort of thing. I was really, really serious about exploring that sort of thing, kind of my whole life. But at that point, it was between like Toby, me, and Chris. There was definitely some weird shit going on, and it was it was kind of a really exciting time because it was like, oh, are there ghosts and all that sort of thing, and whether or not you create it or not, there's something happening, and it's just worth mentioning. It's just really scary, fun shit that definitely inspires words, because the whole thing is kind of like I like to write about the unknown. I like to write about ghosts and what could be and that sort of thing. Did you come unplug?
No.
Okay.
No, we're fine. We're still good.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good segue to my next question. See, now that I've got you here, I can ask all these questions.
Yep. That's what I'm here for, I guess.
What's the manifold curiosity?
Oh.
Fuck you.
See, this interview is over. Turn these off.
I've said too much.
No, there's going to be 2.5 hours of static. No, the manifold curiosity is. I explained this to a friend of mine online. Like, I wrote this sort of saying somebody. I put like contact info. Someone actually contacted me, and he was like, "Well, he wanted to ask me about it." So I've been going back and forth with him about it. I want to say I channeled. I don't like the word channeled because it just sounds too like witchy, hippy dippy, or new agey, I guess. But channel is the best word that I can think of to describe it. It was the first phrase that came to me without me thinking of it, that I was like fully conscious of, because like I've never used the word manifold once in my entire life ever. And then, like, the manifold curiosity was a phrase that just popped into my head while I was taking a piss one night. And I loved it, and it really resonated with me just because it's such an atmospheric and creepy sounding phrase that's just like, well, what the fuck is it? It's a very curious kind of thing. So I came up with the idea of it, of the song itself, that it's about, what it's like to be a ghost, what it's like to commit suicide and be a ghost. That's what the song itself is. I mean, the lyrics at least are about. But years and years later, when I had the sort of Satan vision and I was working on all that, the manifold curiosity came back because that's kind of what it meant. But at the time when I came up with the concept of the ghost and all that, I didn't really understand what that phrase meant at the time. It was just a very evocative sounding couple of words that I turned into a really cool poem, which turned into an awesome song. But, years later, when I was thinking about God and what's God and all that, it's a nameless thing that ended up being the manifold curiosity. So it was when I, quote unquote, channeled that phrase, it took like a good 10 years or whatever for it to actually make sense to me. But
what it means to you now is completely different than what the poem represented.
The poem stands by itself. It has its own thing, and it has a name. It just happens to have the same name as what I call the imposter that says it's God in the Sword of Satan. It's a nameless, horrible thing. It's not real, but is tenuous. That's the manifold curiosity. It's something that wants to hurt you. Basically, like the world at large.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
No. I love that. I mean, I knew going into this, because that's the difference between you and Toby. I can ask you what lyrics mean, and you'll tell me. And whereas he's usually a little more guarded about what they mean.
Oh. Well, I could do that too, but I'm just kind of talking.
Hey, what does this mean? Hey.
Yeah.
Well, and then, so what about another thing? I'm just trying to think of something interesting that people would probably want to hear about. What about, there was a story too that it never actually went very much further.
Yeah.
But there's a story behind Conception Pathetic and Rise of the Numberless, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we turned that into a T-shirt. Remember that?
That was part of the first.
Yeah. I wrote a prose version of what the song is. I came up with an idea. I don't know, like this. I guess Hubardo kind of came from that, because that was my first idea of a concept, not a concept album, but the whole idea was to have one song on like a bunch of different albums that tells like a sequential story. You know what I mean? So My Fruit Psycho Bells had a Conception Pathetic, and then Bath had what do you call it? The other one had Rise of Heat. Yeah, and there was going to be another one. It was just going to be kind of like but it was really abstract, a very, very strange, like metaphysical story. I was reading a lot of Blake at the time, so it kind of just it doesn't really. And I was also a lot younger, so it doesn't make much sense, I guess. And I don't even remember what the story was about. But those two songs or poems, whatever, definitely follow each other. And it was supposed to tell a story, and it was supposed to, follow the course of I don't know how many albums and songs. It was just gonna kind of keep going, kind of the way Morbid Angel. Like has every album they have follows like it's in alphabetical order.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if they're trying to finish the alphabet, but it's kind of a cool thing. But that's what this was supposed to be. Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to think. What other things can I ask you about? Well, I think that might be it.
Well, that's cool too.
You're like, wait, no. Unless there's any other things you want to pontificate upon.
No, I can't. I don't know. I can't really think of anything. I'm not going to pontificate. Well, I'm really good at it, but I don't. I can't really think of anything that would be appropriate for that sort of thing.
All right.
Other than I really dug Hubardo, I guess. I'm very proud of it.
Well, and then Coffins on IO too is really good too. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know what I could talk about? I've been thinking about the song titles.
Please go ahead.
For everything that I've done, at least very recently. Because I mean, like Toby always told me, don't look at reviews; they're stupid. I actually found a couple of people on Amazon that bought the Sort of Satan. They actually just sent me a check for like $27. People bought the Sort of Satan on Amazon, so that's fucking great. Just
the Sort of Satan is available on Amazon.
Yeah.
Did you put it up on Amazon?
Of course I did.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. There's a couple like scathing reviews of it. It got 1 star. Please buy it, everyone. But Toby said, don't ever read reviews. Just don't. So I haven't. But every now and again, I come across shit on about Kayo Dot and whatever, and like a couple of people are like, this is the stupidest song title. Like, this is where does this ridiculous song title come from? It doesn't like hurt my feelings or anything. I don't give a shit what anybody really thinks. But I just kind of want to defend myself, I guess, in saying that Tangerine Dream, okay? One of the biggest influences, I write a lot of my poetry or lyrics while listening to that, at least like late 70s, early 80s, like movie soundtrack, kind of weird. They're live shows, really, 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 really good shit. But a lot of, Edgar Froese studied sculpture, I think, under Salvador Dali. So there's a real surrealist bent to a lot of his early music and composition, and it comes through in song titles. Like his song titles are extremely strange and very evocative, and I kind of just grabbed that and used it. Every song title I kind of painstakingly like meditate on for a long time before I actually come up with. So there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of thought that actually goes into every single song title because I think they're important. Yeah. It used to be a huge deal to me. Like I would go to Record Town, I didn't know what to buy, so I'd pick a tape out with a cool, cover and read the song titles, and if they were awesome and scary sounding, I'd get the shit. But I kind of try to just use that. I like really evocative, atmospheric, and creepy and surrealist sounding titles, and apparently Toby doesn't have much of a problem with it either, so because he uses them all.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that all the titles for poetry that I come up with are painstakingly and very consciously worked on, I guess. So,
Oh, well, that actually brings up another question. What
okay.
comes first? Do you write the poem first and then title it later, or do these titles like Manifold Curiosity just come to you and then you just kind of think about them for a while and what they represent, and then that leads to a lyric?
A lot of the time, the title comes first, and I'll listen to music and like trip out and hang out and walk around and think about the title itself. Or if Toby gives me the skeleton of a song, I'll listen to it nonstop for like 2 or 3 days or whatever until I start getting ideas about it. But it's usually based on the song title. Like every now and again, it goes in reverse, but 9 times out of 10, I come up with a title, and that inspires me to write the poem about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and then one other thing I forgot to ask you about.
What's up?
Of course. What about Bucky?
To save the best for last.
Sorry, specifically Wallow's record.
Wallow's a load of shit records. When Toby was looking, he's in the Flenser now, or whatever. He was like, "I'm looking for, does anyone know any good like reputable labels for me?" I posted. I was like, "Wallow's." That little bastard never even liked it or any of that comment or anything. Like, whatever, Toby. He likes it and he knows it. He's just Bucky was my first musical project, and I want to say that was I started that in high school. It was just me, which is what I guess it was kind of the like bands like Xasthur and Leviathan and all these black metal American acts. There's just like one dude all by himself. Bucky was one dude by himself, except it was more funny and lighthearted as opposed to everything sucks and I want to burn the world down. But what about Bucky? Like I've been wanting to write like an actual Bucky album for like a good 14 years, but I haven't. I'm like slowly amassing equipment.
Well, here's the thing. Like, it's not that you shouldn't pursue writing something, but you think Bucky represents something very specific, like a very specific, like there's a lot of immaturity to some of it.
Yes, it's a huge joke.
Yeah.
It's a big pornographic, gross joke. It's a big fart joke, I guess, right? And it's funny, and it doesn't take music seriously. I used to record all these tapes at like high speed, so I sound like the Chipmunks and shit, because I can't fucking sing.
Well,
Never
Toby
could.
Toby did that too with Spoonian.
Yeah, I know. So I want to say that I helped inspire that.
Oh, I didn't know who came first.
I did. I got suspended. Well, actually, we both got suspended. We lit the bus on fire when we were in sophomores in high school, and we got suspended for a week. So I was like score. I got a week off, So I wrote an album. And I called it Bucky. And I love the name, and my wife hates it, but I to this day, I'm like, I want to record some kind of. It's a joke, but it's a really funny joke.
So it would be a continuation of the joke. Like now, it's like, what do you find, silly? Well, now
It would be the same kind of shit. It has to be sophomoric. Like it can't be. It can't be like plays on words or like adult humor. I can't talk about. It can't be like intellectual humor about some book that no one's ever heard of. Nothing obscure. It's like. Stupid. It's the stupidest shit you can think of. You've seen Tim and Eric and all that. Yeah. It's the musical equivalent of that. It makes no sense, and it's like, what the fuck did I just waste my time on? That. As far as music itself goes, I've got ideas. I'm working on stuff. I've been playing guitar for a few years now. I'm like, actually, I don't know what I want to do with it. I have an idea for an anti-Islamic black metal kind of thing, because the whole anti-Christian thing's been like done into the ground. So I think we're in what is this, the 21st century, right? Yeah. Yes. So what anti-Islam, right? That's the way to go. So I'm thinking of doing a black metal thing of that, and like, I've got some ideas and shit, but I'd like to do like serious kind of stuff, but I also want to Bucky's my favorite because it's the biggest joke in the world. That's kind of what it's all about. But yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured I had to get a fuck you reference. I forgot to ask Toby about Spoonian when I interviewed him. Well, but I mean, like, I can have him on again.
Yeah.
There's so many stories. Well, yeah, because I remember, that's what got me started too, was because you did Bucky, he did Spoonian, and I was like, well, if those two assholes can make these tapes on their own, I can make mine. And,
Yeah.
But I was never as prolific or as creative, I didn't think, but
I guess, I don't know, but
yeah, but anyway. It was a fun time.
it was fun.
In high school.
Yeah, it was fun. It was stupid. I like the creative process. I used to handwrite all the stupid words and make a little inlay card and all that shit, and it was like all on tape. I didn't even have a 4-track. I just used the 2 tape decks on the thing, or like I had a karaoke machine that I would use. And one time I was able to borrow an amp from somebody or other, and I had that for a good week, so I wrote a fucking album in the day, That was fun. That was a lot of fun. I haven't done anything like that in a while. See, the problem with me is right now is drums, because I can't play drums. I don't have drums. I don't have the room for drums, and I don't have my neighbors don't have the tolerance for drums. So I want to do an album, but I don't know how I'm going to do any kind of percussion. But that, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast.
I had a blast.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Okay. All right, so you can buy the Sort of Statement on Amazon?
Yes, you can. I haven't figured out how to format it so you can like download it or whatever for your Kindle or your thing. But it's like a pay as they're like. There's some publishing company inside of Amazon that if somebody orders it, they'll put a copy of it. Yeah, publishing on demand. Yeah, but I just got a $27 check from them a couple days ago. I didn't know where it was from, and I was like, oh, I bet this is this. So I think a couple of people actually bought it. Yeah. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this,
it'll expand your mind.
Yeah. Fucking buy it.
Yeah, help me out.
Yeah. All right.
The Manifold Curiosity.